Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the very first episode of the Matchday Aftermath. Honestly, it's a pleasure to be doing this. I think this is actually the very first episode on YouTube. Yeah, I just want to go straight to it because this is actually the episode for the games played on the 31st of January 2026. What games do we have? We had quite interesting games on Saturday, the 31st of January 2026. We had, ladies and gentlemen, we had Brighton, the Eagles versus Everton. That ended in a 1-1 draw. We had Leeds United versus Arsenal. I'm going to talk more on that later. Leeds they lost on their Ellen Road to the Gunners, top of the table, 4-0. We had the Black Wolves, Wolverhampton Wanderers. They lost to Bournemouth at home. Chelsea came back from 2-0 down at West Ham to win the game 3-2. It was quite the comeback. Honestly, it was quite the second half comeback. I'll be honest with you, I did not see that coming. But yeah, says a lot about Chelsea. Liverpool bouncing back at Anfield, or rather, should I say, doing what we expect of them to do at Anfield, winning that game 4 goals to 1 against Newcastle United. Honestly, Newcastle United, they started off the season quite promising, but all of a sudden he sort of just pitted out. To be honest with you, it almost feels like he can't function without Bruno Guimaraes. I won't call him maverick of a midfielder, but he's quite vital to them and all. But yeah, it was quite the match day. Honestly, it was quite the match day. In other leagues, man, Bayern Munich, they surprisingly drew their game. They've been quite a weird form of late. In the Bundesliga, we always when we hear Bayern Munich, I hope I can say Real Madrid. But when we hear Bayern Munich, we're like Bayern. They're gonna. We always think it's a certain thing, a win is certain for them, but somehow they didn't win the game. They played against Hamburg away, and it was a 2-2 draw against Hamburg SV, and I was quite disappointed, to be honest with you. This is the second time they're dropping points. Second time in 2 weeks they're dropping points, and I'm wondering what's going on. What's going on with Bayern? What's going on with Bayern Munich? In La Liga, there wasn't that many important games. You had Elche losing to Barcelona at home 3-1. That was much expected. Levante drawing with Atletico Madrid 0-0. I know those were the important games. No offense to anyone, but those were the important games in Europe. If we're going to go to Serie A, we're going to then talk about Napoli beating Fiorentina 2-1. Nothing so surprising about that. Finally, Napoli picking some sort of form. In the Dutch Eredivisie, I think AZ Alkmaar losing to NEC, that was a bit of a surprise. And all, but yeah, let me know what you think. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments. But in this episode, I really want to talk about the game between Leeds and Arsenal. Not just being an Arsenal fan, but Arsenal being table toppers. I'll be honest with you. There was a thing Paul Scholes said, which I want really, which is going to really, should I say, form a basis of my argument or what I'm going to say in this episode about Arsenal. He said that should Arsenal win the Premier League, that this will be the worst team to win the Premier League in quite some time, and I actually do agree with him. And Arsenal once again. The game against Leeds, away at Ellen Road, they actually proved exactly what he was saying. Arsenal did not get out of second gear. They won the game without even getting out of second gear. People say, "Oh, that's the hallmark of champions and stuff." But it's the hallmark of champions being able to win even when you're not playing at your best. But when it becomes a consistent thing, it becomes a consistent thing. Then it starts to worry you because this is something that for me has become a consistent story in this season for Arsenal. Winning games without being at their best. Having these not able to play two good halves. Just not not necessarily not getting the job done, because they did get the job done against Leeds, but just not being at their best. I can't remember the last time Arsenal were the best. I think maybe you can count out of how many games they've had so far. Hold on, let me bring that up. How many games have they had so far? We're midway through the season. They've had 24 games, and maybe I can count only maybe 4 or 5 games where Arsenal actually got out of out of second gear. 4 or 5 games where Arsenal were actually at their best. I know, and rest. I'm sorry. We're talking about 16 wins, 5 draws, and 3 losses. Some of those draws should have never happened. Some of those losses shouldn't have happened. Arsenal should have been far ahead. Right now, they're currently ahead of Man City with I'll buy my mouth 7 points. Man City with a game in hand. They're going to be playing today, Sunday, but it's being. I won't not if Arsenal win the league this season, and personally, I do hope they win the league this season because I don't know how they're going to be able to do it next season. Because teams are, whether you like it or not, teams are actually catching up to them. But should they win this season, then man, it would have been honestly, really and truly one of the worst teams to have ever won the Premier League. Yes, Leicester City, when they won the Premier League, that miracle win, they were way better than this. They were far, far better than this. People say it was a fluke. Okay, it was a fluke, but they were better than this. And we saw this in the game against Leeds once again. Arsenal not being at their very best. At the beginning, you had Leeds taking the game to them, resisting as much as possible. The flow kind of changed. When Arsenal scored the first goal from a wonderful cross from Madueke, finished with a header from Zubimendi, Super Mendy as I call him. Yes, fine, okay. You had that, but Leeds, you would thought at that point Arsenal would have dominated the game and taken the ascendancy and stuff, but that wasn't the case. Leeds, they continue to resist and make things difficult for Arsenal. In fact, at some points it looked more like Leeds were dominating. The second goal comes in once again from set piece. Darlow, the Leeds goalkeeper, scoring an own goal, and you're thinking, okay, 2-0, going to half time. Then that's when I can start saying, okay, fine, maybe by second half, things start getting a bit better for Arsenal because then Arsenal becoming a little bit more intentional. But why do we always have to wait for the second half? Why can't we have two good halves? Rather than having one being very poor or very average, and then the next one or one being absolutely superb. I feel the hallmark of champions should be their ability to win both halves. That's how you are you and that's how you convince people. That is what makes you a champion and all. But I don't know. Honestly, if Arsenal win the Premier League this season, I would still want Mikel Arteta, or rather, I want one or two things to happen. Either those in charge of Arsenal sit Arteta down and let him know he needs to change his tactics, or it's maybe time to say goodbye to Mikel Arteta. Honestly, because these tactics, his risk aversion tactics, cannot continue to work. For Arsenal, it just can't. It's not sustainable at all. It's just not sustainable. It's honestly, it's not, because this season we seem to be just getting by. Next season we're going to get punished. That's just the truth. But then let's talk about the game itself, because there are a lot of things I noticed during the game. First and foremost, I want to start with Victor Gyökeres. He scored for Arsenal against Leeds. For me, Victor Gyökeres proved the fact that if you feed Victor Gyökeres, he will score. Wonderful, wonderful assist from Gabriel Martinelli, being fed the ball by Odegaard. I'm going to come to that Odegaard thing later. But being fed the ball by Martin Odegaard, wonderful finish from Victor Gyökeres. You saw the ball; he came right where he wanted it. He still was able to muscle the defender and get his leg to it. Wonderful finish, and that's the kind of balls he wants. The sort of balls that puts him 1-on-1 with goalkeeper. 1-on-1 through on goal, 1-on-1 with goalkeeper. Those are the kind of balls that he wants. Yeah, especially in the Premier League. He's not the most technically gifted player. He's not, I won't even call him technically gifted. He's not your Olivier Giroud that's technically gifted brute. I know, no, he doesn't. But what he is a finishing artist. He knows how to finish. Just get him the ball. For me, I would say keep feeding him. Keep feeding him. Feeding him those through balls, feeding him those chances. Take a chance at him. I don't know if I don't know if he would have scored if Big Bukayo Saka was on that pitch, because Bukayo Saka tends to be not only be a bit more predictable with his attacking, but seems to focus more on himself scoring goals as opposed to feeding Jokeres. Jokeres needs a team that is going to feed him, focus and feeding him. I'll keep saying something, and that's the fact that Arsenal continues to play way better. When Victor Jokeres is their number 9. Why? Because he occupies the defenders. He pushes, the opposing defensive line higher, which now gives room for other players to play and thrive. Unlike a player like, unfortunately, no offense, but unlike a player like Gabriel Jesus, who's, yes, he's technically gifted and all, but he's not exactly a physically dominating player. He prefers to drop deep, interact with the midfielders, get on the ball, play 1 or 2 passes and all, and coming from deep. Unlike Victor Jokeres, that prefers to stay on the last defender. Yes, he tries to hold up the play and give the ball off, but then he likes to make runs in behind the defenders and push that line. And that gives Arsenal a lot of space and stuff. Arteta just needs to figure out how to get the best of him, and that's by having the team, build around him and give him the supply. Arsenal used to be a team where strikers could actually thrive, especially top finishers could actually thrive. So it's kind of funny that we have one, but he's not exactly banging in the goals because he's just not being fed. Another thing I noticed would be I want to go through these things. I don't know if you noticed how Odegaard walked into the pitch looking like a child that had been scolded. Yes, he after that game against Man United, that really piss poor game against Man United, he most likely read the comments on social media. He most likely read the analysis on newspapers. How he made 0 key passes in that entire game. You cannot have your number 10 be that absent in the game with less of a mark. Look at people like Bruno Fernandes of Man United. You have people like Cole Palmer of Chelsea. You have folks like Reinders in Man City. People that like to get on the ball, 10s who, or should I say hybrid 8s who like to get on the ball and hit those passes, split defense with passes. You had people like De Bruyne, and please do me a favor, folks. Do not ever put De Bruyne and Odegaard in the same sentence. De Bruyne is way, even an average De Bruyne is still way ahead of Odegaard, because De Bruyne, don't forget when he was in Premier League, he was hitting double figures in assists on a consistent basis every season. Odegaard, too risk averse, slows the game down, way too risk averse, doesn't take risk with his passes. His idea of a pass is to Saka, and then he hopes for the best. But in this game, he came on and he showed us what he can actually do. And I was wondering, where's this Odegaard been? Look at that defense splitting pass to Gabriel Martinelli down the right wing that led to that goal, and that led to Victor Jokeres goal. Look at that. That is what we want to see. Not holding the ball and taking forever to release the ball. This is what we want to see. Look at that lovely pass to Gabriel Jesus that led to Jesus' goal. That assist to Jesus. That's just what we want to see. That's what we want to see from a number 10. But what we don't want to see is this ridiculous experiment Arteta continues to try to conduct with Pierre Hincapié. And honestly, I'm starting to get fed up with it. Pierre Hincapié is not a left back. When you speak of Arteta, going to understand that. He's not a left back. Maybe he can play as a left wing back or something, but not in the Premier League. Right now, he's not comfortable enough with the pace of the Premier League in order to play as a left back. those wingers, if he comes up against a world class winger, he's done for. And you could see it in the game. I know there was that look of relief in his face, when he was coming off for Calafiori. He's a centre back. Arteta needs to stop that experiment. Maybe in 2-3 seasons he'll be ready. By then he would have adapted to the pace of the Premier League. Maybe 2-3 seasons he'll be ready. But right now, no. Just no. He's not ready. It's not his fault. It's just how good the Premier League is. It's just how good the Premier League is. But yeah, these are things I noticed. I don't know if like right now I cannot really predict if Arsenal's going to win the Premier League. As an Arsenal fan, yes, I do hope they win the Premier League, but would they? I don't know. But what I will tell you though is this whole thing of winning games without getting out of second gear, it is not sustainable. Arsenal will need to pick up the pace somehow. They might have to even sacrifice certain competitions in order to prioritize the Premier League. Because to me, if they don't win the Premier League this season, then man, it's gone. It's too late. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching another episode of the the match day aftermath. Thank you so much for watching, and please do let me know what your thoughts and comments. What do you think about the Arsenal game? What do you think about the other games? What do you think about Chelsea's comeback, which was quite the fighting spirit of the Blues, if I may say so myself. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and see you in the comments. See you next episode.